Warzone victories. And as this game involves cross-play, it's important to gain any and every edge in battle we can, especially if you're a dirty casual like me, but you still want to be competitive. These tips are designed for controller players and those playing on console, but unsurprisingly, all this works on PC too. So if you're ready, here's 15 secrets and settings to gain the edge in Call of Duty Warzone. Let's start with controller tips and tricks. As a default setting, we must hold down square on PS4 and X on Xbox to pick up any weapon. This is not good enough. This slows us down and can make the first weapon you find impossible to pick up in time. By the time you've held the button down long enough, your momentum has gone too. You become a sitting duck. Therefore, the first setting you should change in your menus right away is this. Go down to weapons and change use/reload behavior to contextual tap. This will make things like opening crates and picking up weapons and replacing weapons all a single button press. You will now loot quicker and be able to move more often. Oh, and this carries over to vehicles too. Get in them instantly. It's imperative when you're escaping the gas or another team's ambush. So do yourself and your team a favour and switch to contextual tap. Next, by default, our character is set to run after pressing on the left thumbstick. This is fine and all, but once again, the additional time it takes to press that down can be streamlined in your settings. So jump back into controller settings and down to movement automatic sprint. Here we have three options. It's disabled by default, there's auto sprint, and the one I suggest is auto tactical sprint. Although the difference between tactical sprint and standard sprint is negligible at this early point, but definitely auto run is a godsend, so please use it. Our next setting is film grain. Film grain is here to make the game look more cinematic, as if it was filmed on exactly that, real film or a cinema. This adds a filter over the image. It's automatically set quite low and does a great job of hiding the lack of textures in some areas when you're moving around the map. So by turning this off, your game will look a little less atmospheric and you'll notice things like anti-aliasing a little bit more. But what you lose in visual film-like aesthetic, you will make up in visibility. Buildings are easier to maneuver around, and spotting enemies at all distances is another step easier. The film grain is a form of post-processing, which actually causes a minute delay on your screen. So turn off all post-processing to gain the edge. Which brings me to my next point. Motion blur. Just like film grain, motion blur is here to make things look more cinematic, more movie-like, and to hide a few unsightly issues. Here's my advice. Jump into your settings and under general and accessibility is world motion blur and weapon motion blur. Your game is most definitely going to look worse, but here's a thing to remember. Have you ever watched a professional PC player? More often than not, the game actually looks better on console. But why is that? Well, it's pretty simple. The pro always turns off everything which doesn't benefit them or distracts them. They turn off shadows, they turn off high quality lighting, they turn off motion blur. They want the bare bones of the game with no post-production or visual effects that don't help them. So let us take a page out of their book and turn off our motion blur. The game will actually run a little smoother on console now, and when quickly turning and aiming, your target acquisition will be improved greatly. Okay, so that was a little technical. Let's find another way to get an advantage. Here's a great simple one. We can change our HUD options. As a default, we have a circular minimap. This is integral to knowing the enemy locations. Well, in general settings, this can be switched to a square shape instead, and it so happens to be far bigger. And right now, bigger is better, especially for this. Bigger surface area, more information on screen, therefore the trade-off is you will lose a little bit of your peripheral vision, but it's definitely worth it. So switch to square when you get the chance. Also, here's one which doesn't suit everyone. The minimap can be locked in place. It won't rotate around. If you're a player or in a team who uses north, south, east, west calls, this screen when locked in place is perfect, making north always up on the screen, east always right, south down, and west left. Like I said, it's not for everyone, but if you use those callouts, this is a good change. Our next setting is actually 3 steps, and it's all about the crouch button. When you first play the game, this movement is set to be held, meaning we have to keep our thumb down for longer. We've already established why we don't like to hold buttons down. It's too time consuming, and this will get you killed in the battlefield. So on the controller settings, down to movement, select slide behavior. Change this to tap. Now you become John Wick. One button, epic slides, consuming, and this will get you killed in the battlefield. So under controller settings, go down to movement and select slide behavior. Change this to tap. Now you become John Wick. One button, epic slides. Let's go further into this. Do you use a standard controller? If so, a change I recommend will improve your aim drastically. In controller button layout presets, change slides become instinctive, and sliding in general becomes a huge part of the way you maneuver around the map. On a negative side, your melee button is now located on circle, or the Xbox button. You may now lose punch fights, but let's be honest, what do you use more, crouch or melee? I'm gonna guess you use crouch. By the way, PlayStation gamers, I'm currently reviewing the PS4 back buttons, which are a super cheap alternative to a full-blown SCUF controller. So far, it's quite an impressive piece of kit, allowing